Freddy, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes. Am I looking that way or am I looking that way? I'm looking that way, aren't I? There we are.
Yes.
It's very weird. You're all there, but I'm looking there. Okay. So I am, well, do you know what, actually, to start with, I'm going to say I've been buying from David at Mevalco since before they were Mevalco, which was, I remember the first time I met David, we sat in the back of a van tasting chorizo and Iberico pork and all sorts. And our restaurant at the time was a building site. And I loved it, the enthusiasm and the passion for ingredients. I think for us, when we're trying to buy great ingredients, it's making sure that the person you're buying it from is equally passionate as you are. And I think that's kind of where our relationship and friendship started. And I've not looked back. I think they were working out of a shipping container in a field at the time, and now here we are, probably getting the best ingredients. I run a French restaurant, and only buy Spanish produce, which is seems a bit crazy, but it's all about, I think, having trust in the people that you're buying from is key, and all the ingredients. So today I'm just going to give an example of two things that are about the quality of ingredients rather than fancy cooking. I mean, I've literally, we're doing potatoes, onions and peppers with the best piece of lamb, and we're going to do really simple, perfect prawns with great olive oil and some Manzanilla sherry. You don't need anything else. When ingredients are good, it's just as simple. So today I've just cooked already. I don't know if you can see, I don't know what you're seeing, but this lamb here, so I've just cooked that and rested it. And this is the Pyrenean lamb that we're using in the restaurant on a daily basis. And this is the racks. And all I've done is I've just given the fat a lovely sort of, just a crispy sort of flash in the pan, then roast it in the oven for 15 minutes, and I'm going to rest it for about 20 minutes. And that, hopefully, first time I've used this oven, it was playing up a little bit, but I'm hoping that's going to come out lovely and pink. And then I'm just going to, with some really good olive oil, so I've got this Molino La Condesa here, which is a coupage of Arbequina, and then David will probably have to fill you in, it's the Hockey Blanco and Piqual. Even though we also make an olive oil with the same grapes, I would say grapes with the same olives, I can't remember. So I'm just going to cook in there. I've got in the pan, I've just got some garlic and Spanish onions and loads of olive oil, and I'm just going to cook those down over a high heat. Nice bit of salt in there, bit of fleur de sel as well. Going to cook that down, start getting a bit of colour on that, and then we're going to get. Normally, I'd be cooking into there as well. I'd be cooking just peppers from scratch, so I chunk up. But as a cheat, I'm using pre-roasted, marinated peppers, which, if I'm honest, end up tasting better every single time than anything you do yourself. They're always, it's that thing about picking veg and cooking it straight away. Peppers, by the time they get to you, have spent so much time traveling that they start to lose their sweetness. If you can pick them, roast them, peel them straight away, you're always going to get a better flavour. And those said stored in backpack come out, and it's hard to beat. And also, you don't have to faff around with all the nonsense that goes with it. So I'm going to add those at the end to the pobre. So just got that. Hopefully that's going to start to get a bit more colour to it. And then over the next 20 minutes, have a colour. The potatoes will colour as well. So I'm going to drop these potatoes in, a few of those at the same time. And it's just poor man's potatoes. Simple as that. So they're going to go in there. This lamb, the reason I use this lamb is knowing that we're going to get all year round, we get lamb because we obviously talk about spring lamb, and this is the time to be talking about spring lamb, that we have a season, and then we move on to hoggets and we move on to mutton throughout the year. This is the ability to buy spring lamb all year round, because you're going to be able to have, they can have 3 lambing seasons every 2 years. And with, I think there's 4,000 farms, the farmers rotate what they're doing. So all through the year, you're going to have young lamb. And that's kind of a key to it, that you want the tenderness, you want the perfect fat, and you want that delicate flavour, just enough time on grass. And also, they're all restricted to, I think it's 3 breeds. You could correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm not going to attempt to name all the breeds, but they're also finished on sunflower seeds in the same way that you finish Iberico pigs on acorns. This is finished on sunflower seeds, and it starts to just, it gives the fat, it's delicate flavour, but also makes it really healthy. And this is lamb that you can be eating, you know, regardless. This is a healthy lamb to be eating. But most importantly, the reason I buy it is because of the flavour and a consistency of flavour. There's that thing, you know, is it going to be too old? Is it going to be muttony? Is the lamb fat going to be too rich? And the other thing about this is I'm always astonished by actually how filling it is. I look at it and go, I'm going to devour the whole lot, and I never end up being able to. I've got some very lucky, very happy, very fat dogs as well as a result. So whilst that is doing its thing, and I'm hoping just timing wise, this is going to get there. So that's going to cook down. I'll put a lid on that just to force that. Those potatoes will collapse a little bit, and that, hopefully that onion will caramelise. We'll see. I'll add a tiny bit more salt to it. Fab. So in the meantime, we're just going to get these prawns. We'll come back to the lamb, and we'll come back to the pobres. So this was a little trick. I think it's the thing. It's the important number of times you go to a fishmonger, you talk to a fishmonger, and you say, "What's good today?" And they go, "I don't know. Don't eat fish. I'm having steak tonight." And that's kind of the classic English way. And I say to David, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, actually," he said, "not only is this is the best prawn, but there's always, to every chef, doesn't matter who, there's always a tip how to cook it." And the thing I learned off David last year was cooking your prawns in water with no salt, totally unseasoned, and then take water that you heavily season. I'll pop that over there just out the way so you can still see. So that's seasoned to 40%. So it's a 4%. That's 40 grams of salt to 1 litre of water, and that is so that's basically that's sea strength. Excuse me. No one else is. In the time of Corona, are we allowed to do that? But just check it. Always taste your water. It's a little bit too salty. And then what we've got are these amazing gamba de huelva. So huelva, so your near Cadiz. You've got these prawns are that thing about there's nothing worse than how I'm going to put them here. Is that a better sight? So these prawns, it's all I'm after always is that perfect pop when you bite into them. I want to be able to eat the shell. I want to make sure that everything, all the juice in the head tastes delicious. And I'm going to cook these for probably, these are defrosted. I normally cook them from frozen for about a minute. So I'm going to say 35, 40 seconds, boil those, bring them out, and then we're just going to rest those in a bit of olive oil, and we're going to try those with a bit of manzanilla. Manzanilla from San Lucar, Huelva, right next door. And there's the old saying, if it grows together, it goes together. And that is, that's, I think if anything, the Spanish have got that absolutely nailed. You can always rely on the fact that there's always a wine from every region that goes with the food. Right, so we're going to give those it's almost just going to come back to the boil. Then we're going to sit them, and you can leave them in there for an hour, or you can leave them in there just for 2 or 3 minutes. They'll still suck up the flavour really well. What's important is it's iced water, so those prawns cool as quickly as possible. And then what you're going to get is that lovely pop. You can ruin everything in a heartbeat by overcooking. I'm going to check those potatoes a second. There we go. It looks like an excessive amount of olive oil. It is, but it's meant to be. I'm used to a raging fire. I cook over wood a lot. It brings a lot of flavour, and that's another thing. Actually, this lamb, when you're cooking, when you're doing a barbecue, the racks of lamb are absolutely perfect for the barbecue. And it's that thing about having delicate fat. I think that thing, mackerel always tastes the best when they're being barbecued. You don't want to go barbecue cod because you're not really going to get that flavour. But mackerel, anything that's got fat, therefore lamb, I think for me is the ultimate meat to barbecue. Slightly indirectly, and I use wood. I don't use charcoal as much as possible. I try and use wood and bring a sort of sweetness to what you're doing. And those prawns are going to be going over. I'm talking too much. Look at that. Just come up. I have to do these twice. I'm going to eat these. Okay. So do you know what? It's that thing people always talk about recipes, and I think it's it's funny. I don't read recipes for. I know I probably look at recipes differently because being a chef, you sort of adapt stuff and do things yourself. But it's always, for me, it's a guideline, and it's what's important. I think is choosing good ingredients, having an idea. Go away from this. You don't have to copy things exactly. I think it's what you got. I mean, don't go sticking aubergines in this dish instead of peppers, but play around. You can just do it with good potatoes and good onions. You don't even need the peppers necessarily. I mean, that's the example. You go to Galicia. I went to Galicia thinking I'm going to be eating the best fish. It's all about the albarina. It's all about the shellfish. And I came away going, those are the best potatoes I've ever eaten. Galicia is known for the best potatoes. And actually, sometimes if you've got a great ingredient, don't muck around too much. Don't worry too much about following recipes. I'm just looking here very quickly. I'm going to make one thing I am going to do to go with these prawns is I'm going to make a quick alioli. I keep on saying aioli because I've been running a French restaurant. I've been cooking Spanish food for 15 years, and then last year I decided I wanted to open a little French restaurant, which was probably the best decision of my life so far. It was absolutely great fun, and it was all about wanting to. There was nowhere I could go and eat at the weekend that tickled my fancy, so I opened up a restaurant in my neighbourhood, just cooking what I wanted to eat for lunch on Sundays. All this aioli, but 15 years of alioli, so I'll go back to that. So I'm just crushing this with a little bit of coarse salt, and what's really important here is using really lovely salts. This is fleur de sel, but you could be using Malden, but it's important that you use that so you don't have that really strong iodine sort of flavour. Don't use basic cooking salt for this. You want that. This is what you're going to season your aioli with, or alioli, sorry. Okay, and then very quickly. So proper alioli, I wouldn't put an egg. I just do garlic and oil, as the name would suggest. But I used to make it in a pestle and mortar, and then just try to emulsify the oil into the garlic with new seasoned garlic, and it was like eating mustard. It was so strong. But instead today, we're just going to go really lovely arbequina, which is fruity and not too bitter. But you want that kind of bitterness. You want that. You've got the sweet prawns. You want a slightly bitter, salty, sour aioli. It's all about the garlic punch. There's one thing to be said. I don't know if it's true, David, you can correct me. If Spain, even the Romans were buying, they would grow their olives in Spain and imported most of their olive oil from Spain. I think even to this day they are the biggest. Are they still the biggest producers, David?
Yeah, it's over 50% of the olive oil in the world is produced in Spain.
Yeah, there's not enough olive groves in Italy to make the amount of olive oil they claim to make. So it's not from there. I think there's a mountain of amphora that they transported in Roman times in the boats outside Rome, where I think they use it as an archaeological sort of training site for digs, which is literally a dumping ground for all the old amphora from importing olive oil from Spain. And it is still, in my opinion, the best olive oil. I can't shout about where I get it from because everyone would imagine I've got sort of Provençal olive oil, but no, I use mine from the foothills of the Sierra Nevada. It's just for me, it's perfect. We even make our own we blend our own olive oil from the groves down there as well. Right, so nice and simple. And I'm not going to go too far. That's enough. That's about 3 cloves of garlic. But for one probably in my case. So don't go too far. It doesn't have to be mayonnaise for the thick consistency. Just a lovely, easy dipping sauce. There's that. I reckon. What's that? That's not even. Okay. Turn that down. Like I said, so this is poor man's potatoes. I like a bit of character, not maybe that much character. That's a bit too burnt. But food for me is that thing about. So I can remember I think it was Michel Roux saying, I test people when they want to fry. When I want to see if they're a good cook, if they've got the sort of the thought, the care, and the ability. He asks them to fry an egg, and he fries an egg, and he says, "What matters to me that it goes into a pan that's not too hot, and it's just and it's the shape is perfect." go to Spain on the plancha, crispy as possible, nice edges. It's a bit. When I was at school, and I used to get what do you call it? I used to get eggy bread, French toast in the morning, and it was all about the bits. And those are the important things. It's the character and things. It's the little bits that get stuck in your teeth at the end of the meal that remind you of all the delicious things you've had. And I think that's what's important with cooking. Don't get too bogged down. Don't get too fussy about it. It's about the ingredients and how you do it. Don't lose yourself too much in that. Right. So that's getting there. It's going to go a little bit further. Like I said, it's really basic. It's poor man's potatoes. Is there a spoon here somewhere? Spend the money on olive oil at the end of the day. That's what's important. Good. You get what you pay for. I'm going to put that down there. Right. So whilst we're just waiting, those pobres are going to be a few more minutes, not that much longer, before I put those peppers in. We're just going to talk about this manzanilla. So it's not a lie. I always wait. Which one here? This one here, sir. Yeah. This camera, sorry. So this manzanilla, I always have a bottle in my fridge. And the one thing is, my joy is I always know it's going to be there because my wife won't drink it. She can't stand it. Or she thinks she can't stand it. She hasn't drunk it. And she's just put in her head that she doesn't like sherry. And I love sherry. So I don't push it too hard because I always know I've got a glass when I need it. And it's that thing that, so it's Palomino, but it's left. So the manzanilla is from San Lucar. The sea is the sea air is salty, and you can taste the saltiness in the sherry. And I think Fino's nice, but I find it a bit linear. It's a bit one-dimensional. Whereas with manzanilla, and this is Honorama, so it's been left on the leaves for a while, so it's got that yeasty sediment. It's got that extra richness. So you've got the saltiness, and you've got that lovely floor, that amazing smell of the yeast, and that nice and salty, nice and sharp against the sweet prawns, the punchy aioli. I'm going to do it now because I'm allowed to. So I'm going to do that. But like I said, the skins on these, and suck the juice out the head. I'm quite warm here in the sunshine. Okay, so garlic and chili's nearly there. In goes my peppers. Nice little sweetness. David, is there anything else you'd like me to?
No. Anything
I'm missing out here?
No. Just going back to the prawns. I think these prawns. The key thing about these prawns is to cook them very quickly. 1 minute from frozen, 40 seconds from the frosted, and then cut the cooking process by putting them in salted water with ice. Okay, that's the key thing, and then you get a delicate flavor, and you feel like you are by the sea straight away. Yep.
It's that thing. What was the other thing I was going to? Flies. So the thing as well about these pobres that I'm doing now, I've kind of speeded this up. I've steamed the potatoes slightly beforehand. I would take an hour and a half over this, nice and slow. You kind of want those, you want the potatoes to stick to the pan slightly and scrape the bits off the pan. That thing about when you're eating a paella, it's the sticky bits at the bottom of the pan that matter the most. It's the character that you bring to food. So do this slowly. I'm doing this in a turbo sort of mode, so we can do this in half an hour. But I would be hoping that would stick. I wouldn't use a non-stick pan. I'd use something that was going to encourage it to get those sort of lovely caramelized bits that you get to it. And then just to finish it off, before we do that, David, what's the name, the variety of the Galician potatoes that you still haven't given me yet?
It's a DOP, and it's called as simple as that, Galician potato. Okay.
It's Galician potatoes, okay. But they are, if you can get choose the right potato. I'd use maybe a King Edward for this, would work really well. Then goes just a bit of parsley. That, what are we going to serve this on? Let's do one of these. Don't want to burn your table. What am I going to put this on? There we go. Turn that upside down. Excuse me, this is slightly chaotic. I'm told off in my kitchen, in my own kitchen, by my chef for being absolutely chaotic and making a terrible mess all the time. So really simple. Doesn't look like much, but actually, when you look at that, if I'd given that just a little bit more time, you could get those potatoes to go a little bit further. Move that olive oil so you can see properly, like that. And then take that lamb. It's not hot. So this is the moment. I wasn't sure about the temperature of that oven, so fingers crossed it's going to be perfect. Delicately pink in the middle. A little bit. Could be a little bit less. I'm sorry. This is the nature of cooking live. I'm all right at work. I can set it to exactly 200 and something degrees and exactly however many minutes. And I've not had that privilege yet. Still lovely and pink though. Excuse me. Just serve that just with those pobres like that. Let's just chop that one there.
Yeah, very brief about this lamb, Freddy. So these animals are wild animals, or they are roaming free. And then in the last month, they are fed as well with using local sunflower seeds, and that really makes that the composition of the fat is more like olive oil. It's a very healthy fat, the same as with the Mevalco pork acorn fat. This is one of the few red meats which is usually in diets for people who have heart problems. So and as well, obviously, it melts at low temperature, is really delicious. This is usually chefs all around the world, when they've tried this lamb, then they want to bring it to their country. So Singapore or Hong Kong or Italy. It's usually chefs who are really requesting these lambs to be used in the restaurants as a unique point of view. But it's healthy, it's sustainable, and it's really, really delicious. Okay.
I took this to Abergavenny to the food festival last year, and I said, right, I'm bringing Spanish lamb to a Welsh food festival. I hope you don't mind. And there was slight uproar in the audience. And then afterwards, I cooked them all the kidneys. The milk-fed lamb kidneys are incredible, and they're sweetbreads as well. I cook those a lot, and there's a huge demand for them. But the meat itself, and when you could convert 300 or 400 Welshmen to eating Spanish lamb and saying they might never go back, you know it's good. So here it is. There's the prawns of the Gamba Blanca de Huelva, with a really runny, lovely, punchy alioli, paired with manzanilla, and then you've got patatas pobres with the lamb. So you've got a little bit from the south with a bit of basically sea air and a glass, I reckon. And then you've got something from the north. You've got the Pyrenean lamb, and preferably Galician potatoes, and the most amazing peppers and onions and perfect olive oil. Simple as.